him, and then getting him on the field this spring and kind of where he is at this point.
Obviously, when we was going through this process back in the off season, right after the season ended, going into the bowl game, we was looking for a guy to come in to kind of help add some depth to that room. And you look at Wayman's film; his film was obviously pretty good and very impressive. And just thinking about his accolades of what he's done at Hutchinson Community College, just kind of outweighs some of the things that we were looking at first. And you got a chance to get on the phone with him. I mean, he was a pleasant surprise. He spoke extremely well. You could tell he was a very smart kid. He was a kid who was very passionate. So we was able to get him on a visit and got him committed and signed, and we've been smiling ever since.
How does it look at a JUCO guy? How do you deal with the jump in level and
Yeah, it's kind of like the high school evaluation process, right? You want to get to know the young man first and foremost, and then you see the football traits that kind of come into play, and then you can see he is a complete running back. You know, he has great size, great speed, great vision, great looseness, right? So to me, he was a no-brainer trying to get into our football program.
And then what you saw from him in the spring matched?
Yeah, it absolutely matched. You know, it kind of is exactly what we thought. You know, he's a young man who came in very quiet, very humble, but he worked extremely hard. You know, he's a great young man who kind of just took the board by the horn. And it was the way that he worked out in practice every single day that kind of gravitated not only him but every other guy in that room as well.
What jumps out about him, just skill set?
His vision is able to break tackles. He has great contact balance, and he just really have a great feel for the game of football. You know, some of those running backs do it, and I don't know if it's something in his high school, because it's the same high school that Trent Richardson went to, it's the same high school that Emmitt Smith went to. So I don't know if it's the high school itself or maybe with the food that they're feeding those guys down there, but Wayman just has the it factor.
Did you go back and look at his high school film and why there wasn't a bunch of attention on him?
Yes, I did, but you know, every kid has a different story. I'm totally not sure why he ended up at Hutchinson, but I'm glad he ended up at Hutchinson. I'm glad he ended up here at USC as well. So.
Sure. And then go to Brian Jackson. What have you seen, kind of his jump?
Yeah, he took a big jump in the weight room. If you look at his body, Brian's worked extremely hard to kind of transform his body, kind of trim down and slim down a little bit. So he can not only be known as a power back, but he can be known as a complete running back. And I think he has made great strides towards doing that. I like his maturity level. Brian loves to play the game of football, and not only playing the game, he loves to practice as well. You know, so I don't think I've ever seen Brian any day that I've known him without a smile on his face. You know, that's just kind of who he is, and he's a very charismatic young man, and we're lucky and blessed to have him in the room.
When you bring, not you, just anybody, when you bring older guys into a room, we see now it's so easy for young guys to bounce, right, and try to go somewhere else. What have you seen from him with Eli and with Wayman coming in and sticking it here?
Very mature. He knows he's a vital piece of his offense, right? And iron sharp as iron. And Brian loves to compete. Wayman loves to compete. You mentioned Eli's name. Eli is a true competitor as well. You know, so those guys feed off each other. It was great to see those three personalities come together in jail, and now I think if you see one, you're gonna see the other two not too far behind, right? So I think that friendship goes beyond the football field. It goes obviously off the field and in the classroom, and then even when they go back to their respective homes, it kind of lingers there as well.
Do you see anyone that you've coached before in any of those three?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. When I was at the University of Memphis, my first season as a collegiate coach in 2018 season, I had three of probably the best backs in the country with Darrell Henderson, Patrick Taylor, and Tony Pollard. And then we had some young guys in there, Antonio Gibson and Kenneth Gainwell. You know, all five of those guys had NFL careers, and I kind of see some similarities in them. Now they're a long way away from Tony Pollard and those guys, you know, but just the way they love each other, just the way they have a selfless attitude. You kind of see those traits, and now you starting to see that the way they work is kind of different. now than it probably was in the past.
Pass blocking, right, is always a
Yep,
conversation
yep,
with that. What'd you see
yep.
from those guys?
Very, very impressive. I mean, we took great strides. I think when you get a chance to go up inside defense on a daily basis, like we have been able to, you know, those guys have given us a really good look, right? And so, obviously, we got Rob Ryan on the other sideline, and he's talking crazy, right? You kind of want to shut him up a little bit. So it's been really fun. It's been really competitive, and I'm very excited about that aspect of all three of those guys' game.
I do want to ask about Rob, but finishing with the running backs, Woody was such a good pass catcher,
Yeah,
right?
he was.
Do you see those guys being able to
I do.
fill that role?
I think Woody was in a class all by himself. You know, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen Woody ever drop a ball, practice or in a game. I think when he was at his previous school at Mississippi State, I think he was the all-time leading receptionist from the running back position, and you see that translate in his one season here. But all three of those guys have great hands. We got a walk-on King Miller who's done a really good job for us this spring, and he made some tremendous gains, and King has great hands as well. So you really feel good about those guys in the room because they are some complete backs, you know, and we've been very fortunate, blessed enough to obviously play in this system to where the backs not only can showcase their running ability, but they can also showcase their pass catching ability as well.
It's always been tough to try to find time for three guys. Do you start thinking about how to use them at this point?
Absolutely. I think all three of those guys are going to be vital to the success of our offensive football team and just our general football team as a whole. I think all three of those guys have great special team value. You know, I think those three guys, they love to compete, they love to work hard, and they love to challenge each other. And all three of them, although they are similar, yet they do have different skill sets. So it's our job as coaches to find a way to get all three of those guys on the field at some point during the game. You know, obviously, somebody may play a little bit more than others, but I think all those guys will have a pivotal role in this season.
What is your feel about kind of letting a guy get into a groove and get carries and pulling guys out? And
Yeah. Well, number one, you want to keep guys healthy. Right? I think we've done a great job of that. If you look at Woody last season and some of those other backs that kind of played, Woody pretty much lasted pretty much all season, which I think was the first time in his career, and I think that's a credit to not only our stretch staff but our medical team, and then just the fact that we were able to rotate those guys as much as possible. So we like to keep fresh legs in the game, but we also want to be conscious of to make sure that we feed the horse, right? So if the guy, if he has a hot hand, right, you want to be on his team, right? So you want to make sure that you're able to do that as well.
Does Wayman strike you as a guy that's a 20
so.
carry, 25 carry?
I think so. I think he can, for sure. I think we have the ability now to kind of spread the wealth a little bit. So not only can he be a 20 carry, 25 carry guy for the first 5-6 games of the season, he can do that for the rest of the season as well, right? So we anticipate playing well into the postseason this year, and if we're going to do that, we need those backs to come on and help him out, and help Eli out, and help Brian out. It's going to be a true collective effort.
What is that first year in the Big Ten? What did you guys learn about kind of road run game, that sort of stuff to travel?
Yeah, obviously with whether it's the Big Ten conference, whether it's high school football, junior high football, you got to be able to run the ball and win football games. And this league has traditionally known to be a tough physical league, which is kind of the brand of football that we want to play now. You know, so I think we made some significant strides in that effort to do that. I think it's a collective effort. We're starting with our whole lineman up front and the tight ends and the wide receivers in the run game, and of course the running backs as well. Anytime we get into two-back sets, we got to be able to block for each other, right? So I think dominating the line of scrimmage is our first and foremost point of focus going into it, and I think last year was a true gauge of that, to be honest. You know, so I think when we did run the ball, we were pretty good. It was really effective. You know, when you look at Woody being the first 1,000-yard back here since I believe 2017, right? And the other back we had, Quinn, had some positive yards. And I think he was tops in the Big Ten with yards per carry. And obviously, you see Brian Jackson come on as a late, and how he played the Notre Dame game and how he finished the bowl game. Those things kind of get you excited because we know we have the people in that locker room that every position on offense to be able to do that.
You mentioned Rob Ryan. What was your first kind of introduction to him on the practice field when with running backs, linebackers?
Well, it's kind of what everybody sees him be. Like Rob is who he is, right? He's number one. He's a phenomenal man. He's a very spirited man. He's a very passionate man. He's a hell of a football coach, right? I mean, and you see that on a daily basis with him. And it's such an honor to share the locker room and share the practice field with him and all these other great coaches as well. I mean, you look at that defensive makeup on that side, and you have some of the best coaches in the world, not only in college football, but in football, period. And so every day you got to come in, you got to come to work, you have to motivate your guys to go out there and do it. You have to go compete against the best. And I truly believe that we have the best defensive staff in all of college football.
Where's your kind of comfort level coming back in this offense and sort of how it works? And
yeah,
how
it's
are
pretty
you
good. So this time last year I was swimming. I think I got the call maybe a week before spring ball started. So it was if I had some familiarity with the offense, with obviously Lee's younger brother Gary Riley. But it's still a vast difference, and being in so many different systems, right? You kind of just catch up and swimming. You just want to make sure you tell the boys to make sure that they go either left or right, when they're supposed to. But now you have a greater understanding, right? You get a chance to spend a whole season, spend a whole off season with Coach Riley and the rest of the offensive staff, just to kind of see how he thinks, what's his philosophy, what's his reasoning why he likes certain things, why he likes certain things, and obviously I've been blessed and fortunate in my career to work with some of the great offensive minds, right? And just kind of bring them all together to put a good product on the field.
And we heard when Chad Bowden got here and sort of building out that staff all around him that it was going to help coaches coach. Right?
Yeah.
How has that sort of, not so much work-life balance, but everything that's asked of you from recruiting, from coaching, from all of that, has that changed or been helped by
it's
what they've done
definitely
outside?
helpful. But to me, it's a little different because I'm a high school coach at heart, right? I coached high school football for 10 years in my hometown of Memphis, and being able to do that has afforded me the opportunity to juggle many hats, to wear many hats. So I still find myself getting involved with the day-to-day recruiting process, right? Because recruiting is kind of why you get in this business, and it's not the recruiting aspect in itself, but it is the relationship aspect of it, right? So you never want to lose track of that, right? So you still talk to recruits on a daily basis. You still have a communication with the parents on a daily basis. You still love to talk to high school coaches on a daily basis. I still probably the only person in America to write handwritten letters anymore, but I try to write high school coaches handwritten letters because those things are important to me. It's about the relationship factor, and as long as I'm in college football, as long as I'm dealing with athletics, period, right, it's going to always be that for me, right? So having Chad and his staff and just come in to just build upon what Coach Riley has laid in place for us has been an added bonus. But for me, it's just going about my day as normal, right? And it's just trying to make a positive impact on any and everybody that I come in contact with.
The sidelines this spring, just in terms of recruits and families and donors and all that, it felt a little bit different. What was that like for you
awesome,
guys having everybody out there?
It's embracing USC. I mean, it's one of the greatest places in the world. Is getting people over to come and see us and to see why we are so excited about what's going on here at this university, right? I mean, you take a holistic approach to locking down the state of California when it comes to recruiting. Not only that, just going out nationally and getting the best players in the country to come back to this place and to see what took prominence here so many years ago. Right, so it's been really good to see the people at practice this year.
Sure. And then I forgot to ask about Eli. Does he give you some positional stuff where you can go outside a little bit?
Absolutely. I mentioned Tony Pollard now, but I think Tony Pollard is probably one of the best football players who ever played a game of football, and I'm being biased, but I think it's true. And Tony has such a unique skill set where you can literally put him anywhere on the football field. And I think Eli can do some of that as well. Right? So he's a very versatile back. He's extremely fast. He's extremely explosive with the ball in his hands. Very smart, studious young man who we can take advantage of his skill set. Right? We can put him in the backfield. We can line him up in slot or even a wide receiver. You'll see him in the kick return game this year. So he's a young man who we have to utilize his skill set for what he brings to us as a football program. And we can't be nothing but excited to have him here.
I appreciate that, Coach.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely, my man. I didn't know if I was supposed to look at
No,
you
you're
or
good,
supposed to look
you're
at him, or
I got a few more. You got
try to
room?
bounce back and forth a little bit.
Ask you a few more here, but when we look at what you guys are landing, and you guys will, whether you offer somebody or you guys land a transfer recruit, what about their characteristics can we look at and go like, that's somebody that's going to play for Coach Jones? What are some things that you're evaluating, you're looking at when you're going?
I'm about as old school can be, man. I mean, you look in this day and age of recruiting, it's so many factors involved in it now. You have so many external factors. My number one concern is that is the young man a really good person? Because he's a good human being, man. If he is, we can check that box out and we can lead to the next step. Let's talk about his family, his background, what's his upbringing like. Because being a freshman in college brings about so many different opportunities, right? Whether they can be positive or negative, but it's such a unique experience because you're away from home from the first time. And then what's your true love for this game, right? Do you really love the game of football? Do you really love going to class and academics? Are you really serious about getting an education? Like, those are some of the things that I look for in a young man. So to me, I always say that the main thing gets the main thing. I don't really spend a lot of time on guys who just love the recruiting process. I want guys to figure it out. I want young men to really truly make the best decision for him and his family and his future and his career. We won't negative recruit here. I've never negative recruited in my life because I feel like we don't have to. Right? I mean, it's USC. It's a top tier education. It's the number one. We got the number one school of business here in the country. We're top 20 academics overall, and so we have a lot. We have a lot to not sell. We have a lot to offer here. And not just for the next 3 or 4 years of this guy's college career, but for the next 30, 40, 50 years of his life.
So that kind of takes me to my next question. Someone like Layman, that junior college experience is so different than what a lot of guys who are on campus here with you guys have gone through. What did you see in him, or what has maybe stood out about maybe what he's learned from that experience that he's taken to you guys now?
Well, number one is him, is who he is as a young man, right? I mean, we're talking about a young man who is very smart, very well-spoken, very polite, very humble, but he's a hard-working individual. And when you get a chance to meet him in person, and you get a chance to meet his support system, his mom, his dad, his godfather, his sister, and you can clearly see why, right? You can clearly see why he is the way he is. I mean, he's a young man who would call and ask me, am I going to church on Sunday, right? Like, he's going to beat me to church, and that's who he is. Nobody knows that about him, but that's truly who he is at his core. And when you get guys like that, who is a dynamic football player, I mean, now you're on the way to building success, right? And so just imagine you get a locker room of guys like that, right? A locker room full of guys like that. Like, you're on your way to being one of the top football programs in the country. And I think that's what Wayman brings to us right now.
That kind of breeds about a different kind of hunger, I think, kind of having to go a different path than some other guys.
Absolutely.
How does that kind of manifest itself on the field?
Yeah, it's good. You love that, right? I mean, like I told you guys earlier, I'm a high school football coach, right? So we didn't have much in my high schools that I was the head coach at, even when I played, right? So you see guys like a Wayman who's coming from the junior college rank, and Hutchinson doesn't probably have the facilities there that we have here, but they had coaches who cared, right? And you see that, and you see how great Wayman was in that environment. And then when you get him here on a completely different side of the country with so many more resources, right? He's not wowed by it, but he's very appreciative by it, right? And when you got a guy like that who's very appreciative of just where he is right now in this process that he has to go through, I mean, you can't ask for a much better young man than that.
So I don't know if you remember when you looked back at his film and you're like, okay, let's evaluate this guy. Was there a play or a sequence where you were like, oh, this guy fits?
Yeah, all of them. All of them. Probably the first 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of it, right? It was just highlight after highlight after highlight. But it was how he went about doing it, right? And I look for some of the smaller things. Yes, you get excited about the long runs. Yes, you get excited about his ability to break tackles, and yes, you get excited about his creativeness to make guys miss. But you also get excited about when he scores a touchdown, the first thing he do is find his offensive lineman. And that's evident on his highlight tape, right? Like, you can see that it's not a Wayman's Jordan show. Like, it's a everybody show. It's a Hutchinson show. One of the things that really made me fall in love with him was when he did his acceptance speech for winning the Junior College Player of the Year award, right? He thanked God, he thanked his family, he thanked his teammates, right? Now, one time he used the word I in that speech as well. So when you look at that, he's a very humble young man who understands that his success is not that of his own all the time. Yes, he's going to put in the work. Yes, he works hard, but Wayman is a young man who kind of gives credit to where credit is due.
With Eli, obviously, to get some of his experience is always important. Anytime you're kind of looking or looking anywhere, what appealed to you about him when you guys went out and got him?
Yeah, he's a great young man. Another great young man who has a great family. Mom, dad, and sister are awesome. He's a young man who I've kind of known without knowing a little bit. You know, we actually ran across each other when I was at TCU and he was at Iowa State. And then when he was looking at the end of the transfer portal after Iowa State, they actually reached out and we didn't have any spots available. And now he goes to New Mexico and I come here and we kind of reunite. So I tell him all the time it was always meant to be, right? So but he's another young man who we are ecstatic about. We absolutely love to have him in our room, love to have him in our program. He brings a different dynamic. He brings a different speed factor that we have. In our room now, he's very explosive and he's extremely smart young man. We're talking about a young man who has one of the highest GPAs on the football team and is very evident on the football field with the number of positions that we can kind of bounce around him with. So we're very excited about it.
So when you watch this film coming out of Iowa State, previously when you guys evaluated him to now what you guys were looking at and now your own film, watching in the spring, where do you see the growth in his game overall?
Yeah, you can see it from Iowa State, you can see it from New Mexico, and obviously the first 4 or 5 days of spring, it was very evident that he was a dynamic player. So what you see on film match who he is in person, right? I mean, you can't say enough positive things about him, right? I mean, I guess you could say you wish he was a little bigger, but he's a great size for his skill set, and he does all the small things right. So I'm excited about it.
And then Brian, what are the conversations like? Because there's a lot of things going on around him. What are the conversations like with him during the offseason?
It's just real honest conversations, right? It's yes, you finished the game, you finished the season on a high note. Obviously, the way you played in the bowl game, everybody was impressed, and that's when we kind of get all the comparisons to a lot of the former greats that played here. But Brian was a young man who was honest about where he was in his evaluation process. I was honest with what I was with him in his evaluation process. He too has a great support system, great parents. Mom and dad is awesome. He's the only child, so he had to figure things out a lot by himself. And kudos to him. We challenged him to make a huge jump from January to spring ball, from spring ball to now, and he has to continue to make a jump. But he is a critical part of our offense moving forward. He's a young man who not only we want in our program, but actually need in our program. I've never seen him have a bad day. He loves to play the game, but he also loves to practice as well. Which is one of the things that I'm very excited about him for. So. He has quickly grown to one of the leaders of this room, right? I mean, you look at him in the weight room, you look at him in the meeting room, look at him on the field. He's a young man who you've seen grow right before your eyes. So I'm excited about him and his future and what he can bring to our football team this season.
You've been around some really good running back